What if the government had a giant antenna in the Alaskan wilderness, and used it to cook the sky, steer hurricanes, and fry your brain? Millions of people think exactly that. But is any of it true? Buckle up. Alright, listen up, everybody. Buried in the remote wilderness of Gakona, Alaska, there is a real, actual facility run by the US government. It's called HAARP, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. It shoots radio waves into the upper atmosphere. It was originally funded by the US military. And for decades, it's been the single most blamed piece of hardware for every earthquake, flood, hurricane, and suspicious rainstorm on planet Earth. Today we're cracking this whole thing open. The science, the skeptics, the suits, and the full parade of wild theories that the internet never stopped cooking up. Here are the cold, boring, actual facts, and I say boring because the pencil pushers running this thing want you to think it's boring. HAARP is a research facility located in Gakona, Alaska, designed to study the ionosphere. That's the layer of Earth's upper atmosphere packed with ionized particles, sitting roughly 60 to 1,000 kilometers above the ground. The program was originally funded by the U.S. Air Force, the U.S. Navy, DARPA, and the University of Alaska. In 2015, the University of Alaska Fairbanks took over management from the military. The facility uses a high-power radio transmitter, technically called an ionospheric research instrument, to temporarily heat small regions of the ionosphere and study how that affects radio wave propagation, communications, and navigation signals. Here's the key thing the scientists keep screaming: weather, your rain, your hurricanes, your tornadoes, happens in the troposphere. That's the low layer of atmosphere, the one right above your head. The ionosphere is nowhere near it. Experts say HAARP operates on a completely separate layer of the atmosphere and has no mechanism to reach down and touch weather systems. According to David Heisel, an engineering professor at Cornell who has personally conducted experiments at HAARP, the most accurate summary of what the program studies is simply the effects that the ionosphere has on signals, on radio wave propagation. That's it. Radio signals. Thrilling. Now here is where it gets genuinely interesting, because not everybody raising questions about HAARP is a tinfoil hat maniac. There are legitimate concerns from reputable critics that deserve some airtime. First, the secrecy problem. For years, HAARP's military funding and limited public access created an environment of justified suspicion. Researchers and transparency advocates pointed out that when the US military funds a powerful atmospheric heating device and doesn't broadcast every detail to the public, you're going to get questions. That's not paranoia, that's a reasonable democratic reflex. Second, the program is part of a broader, real family of research into ionospheric modification. Similar facilities exist in Norway, IceCat, Russia, the Sura facility, and elsewhere. The concept of intentionally altering atmospheric properties for strategic military purposes has been discussed in academic and military circles. This is not invented. The US military did historically explore weather modification. The declassified Operation Popeye during the Vietnam War used cloud seeding to extend the monsoon season. So the general idea that governments would love to control weather? Not crazy. The claim that HAARP specifically does it? That's where the evidence falls apart entirely. Third, scientists and fact-checkers themselves acknowledge that the complexity of HAARP's technology, combined with its military origins, makes it a genuinely difficult topic for the average person to evaluate. RMIT University's Fact Lab noted the program's complex technology and military funding as core reasons why misinformation took root so easily. The suits did make this harder than it needed to be. That's on them. Online communities have circulated several unverified theories about HAARP for decades, and they are spectacular. Here they are. 1. Weather control and hurricane steering. Believers claim HAARP's radio waves can heat targeted patches of atmosphere to create, steer, or intensify hurricanes, floods, and droughts on demand. Every major natural disaster, New Mexico floods, Hurricane Katrina, you name it, gets blamed on HAARP in viral social media posts. 2. Earthquake weapon. One of the most viral claims, especially after the catastrophic February 2023 Turkey-Syria earthquake that killed tens of thousands, was that HAARP deliberately triggered the seismic event. A Nature journal study analyzed sentiment on Twitter/X and found this theory achieved massive traction immediately following the disaster. Seismologists and climate experts flatly state that humans cannot artificially generate large-scale earthquakes. 3. Mind control/population manipulation. Some theorists claim HAARP transmits extremely low-frequency (ELF) waves that can penetrate the ground and human skulls alike, altering mood, inducing confusion, or achieving mass behavioral control. This theory has circulated since the 1990s and remains a staple of HAARP conspiracy literature. 4. Chemtrail coordination. A subset of theorists link HAARP to chemtrail conspiracies, claiming that aircraft spray metallic aerosols into the atmosphere specifically to make it more conductive and amplify HAARP's supposed weather control beam. 5. Global depopulation tool. The most extreme fringe claims position HAARP as a deliberate weapon of mass destruction, a tool wielded by global elites to trigger engineered famines, floods, and disasters in targeted countries to reduce world population. These claims have appeared repeatedly following natural disasters in developing nations. Alright, let's lay it all out on the table like a business meeting nobody wanted to attend. Where everyone agrees, HAARP is a real facility. It does heat portions of the ionosphere with radio waves. It was funded by the military. Governments have a documented history of exploring weather modification. Operation Popeye is real and declassified. And the complexity plus secrecy of the program absolutely did create fertile ground for misinformation. Nobody disputes those points. Where they diverge, the mainstream scientific view, backed by atmospheric physicists, seismologists, and independent fact-checkers from Reuters to RMIT University, is that HAARP physically cannot affect weather, cause earthquakes, or influence human minds. The ionosphere and the troposphere are separate systems. The facility's power output, while impressive for research, is orders of magnitude too weak to produce the global catastrophes attributed to it. Conspiracy theorists reject this entirely and treat every denial as further proof of the cover-up. That's the classic unfalsifiable loop, and it's why this theory never dies. The legitimate critics sit somewhere in the middle. They're not claiming HAARP controls hurricanes, but they are saying that atmospheric research with military applications deserves full public transparency, and that government squandered public trust by being cagey about it for so long. Okay. Here it is. The truth. Even I have to admit it. HAARP is a scientific research station studying the ionosphere. It cannot, based on everything physicists currently understand about atmospheric science, control the weather, trigger earthquakes, or beam thoughts into your head. The ionosphere is simply too far from the weather-forming troposphere for HAARP signals to have any such effect. Multiple independent scientific institutions, fact-checkers, and researchers across the world have reached this same conclusion. However, and I'm putting this in capital letters because the suits deserve it, the decades of military secrecy around HAARP, combined with the very real history of government weather manipulation programs like Operation Popeye, gave ordinary people every reason to be suspicious. The government made this bed. Ordinary people just filled it with extraordinarily creative theories. Trust the science. Demand government transparency. Those two things are not mutually exclusive, people. If this blew your mind even a little bit, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop in the comments, which HAARP theory did you first hear, and did you believe it? Because I want to know. This is important research. For the company.